And if you're watching your television, or if you're like anyone on my team here at the High Wire, there are days you just wake up and you are literally puzzled. What is going on? How are we still here? Why are there so many masks? What are people thinking? And I think one of the things that is most difficult is trying to figure out what ties this all together. What is really going on here? Who's in charge? Nobody seems to be agreeing with each other, whether it's the FDA or the WHO. There's something going on. You can smell it. It really stinks, but you can't put it all together. Well, today I want to see this through a very specific lens, because for years I have been traveling the world discussing the issues of vaccines and the pharmaceutical industry and all of the demands and desires. We know that the World Health Organization has been saying for really the last 2 years now that vaccine hesitancy is one of the greatest risks to world health. And if you watched our show earlier in January, you know that the WHO got together, brought in all of their top scientists from around the world to meet in Geneva, Switzerland, to talk about how do we stop vaccine hesitancy, or these people that are questioning vaccines. Well, inside of that, I believe it was a 2 or 3 day symposium, Dr. Heidi Larson made some statements that were absolutely outrageous, unbelievable, but something that we really were beginning to suspect. Today, I want to talk about one statement she made, because I believe it weighs into everything that you are being confused by right now. This is Heidi Larson at the World Health Organization's symposium in Geneva, Switzerland. Just really listen to this.
I think that one of our biggest challenges is, as Bob said this morning or yesterday, we're in a unique position in human history where we've shifted the human population to vaccine-induced, to dependency on vaccine-induced immunity. And that's on the great assumption that populations would cooperate. And for many years, people lined up. The 6 vaccines, people were there. They saw the reason. We're in a very fragile state now. We have developed a world that is dependent on vaccinations. We don't have a choice but to make that effort.
We don't have a choice but to make that effort because we have made the world dependent on vaccines. What does she mean by that? What is she talking about? How did they make the world dependent? Didn't we just start using vaccines and that was a great way forward? It was in addition to all of the other drugs and things we have. What does she mean by we have made them dependent? As though something in the world changed, right? What she's talking about is the destruction of natural herd immunity. That is what she is actually saying. You see, we exist as a species since the dawn of man until now. Before doctors were ever here, they came around a couple hundred years ago. Vaccines came around early, 1900s, late 1800s. So up until that moment, how were we staying alive? How was it that viruses and bacteria were not eradicating the species from the planet, or really any species for that matter? Well, we all had natural herd immunity. And then the pharmaceutical industry got involved and said, you know what? We can probably do the same thing that nature does and get paid while doing it. And so for 200 years, and really specifically since about the 1960s with the advent of the MMR, the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, and going after trivial illnesses, that was the big change, right? We were dealing with polio, and that was scary, and smallpox. But once we started really fiddling and messing with trivial childhood illnesses that barely killed anybody, that we really shifted the world. You see, we essentially had herd immunity. Babies never got the measles. They were never in danger. Every adult had had the measles, and so they protected them from ever really being a giant epidemic that ever killed anybody. In fact, the death rate in 1961 of the measles before the vaccine ever came along was 1 in 500,000 people died in the United States of America every year. That's 1 in 10,000 of those who actually got the illness. But as a total population stat, 1 in 500,000 was the risk of death. So why mess with it? And why does it matter? Well, because now, as we've reported, The vaccines are wearing off. They have a serious problem. People are deciding maybe I don't want to give it to my kids. And all the adults that are now getting these illnesses because they haven't had their adult vaccines. And the WHO is panicked, right? In December, they were really, really scared that we have really messed with the world here. We have absolutely messed with Mother Nature. And we have eradicated the planet of lifelong immunity. Every adult that once had lifelong immunity from having contracted these childhood illnesses no longer has lifelong immunity. We screwed that up. We gave you an inferior immunity with vaccines that you have to get over and over and over again. 6 DTaP vaccines by the time you're 18. They're talking about a 3rd MMR in college and 2 more as adults. You see, these things keep wearing off. How do you get to herd immunity when everything just keeps falling through like sand through an hourglass, disappearing through your fingertips? And the WHO is worried. We have made everybody dependent. Pharmaceutical dependence is what we must fight for now, and we must not lose this battle or we are in trouble.